Chapter here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at a pretty nice little budget-ish folder. Not super cheap, but for what you get, I think the price point is pretty darn good. This is the RealSteel Sidus, but this is the White Mountain Knives exclusive Sidus in shred carbon fiber. I'll get you to take a look at that. Look how sharp that looks. It's also available in copper shred, and many of you will already know this, but there is moon glow in here, so this will glow in the dark if that's your thing. Now, for the purposes of this video, we're going to treat it as if it doesn't glow in the dark, and I'll have a little conversation about that when we get to the handle. The other thing I should point out is there are a couple of other variations available from White Mountain Knives. There's a copper shred carbon fiber, and I think you can do either green or blue moon glow in addition to the standard black that you can get from any retailer. The benefit of going to White Mountain Knives, of course, is that you can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF and save yourself 10%. So I think this is like $77, so you can knock $770 off of that price. Okay, let's quickly hit on size and weight so you know what size we're dealing with here. This guy is 8 1/8 inches overall, 3.5 inches of blade there, 4 1/8 inches of handle, 4 inches grip area, which is pretty nice. And you can see essentially the grip area is the whole handle. And it weighs in at 4.2 ounces, which is pretty stinking comfortable as far as I'm concerned. By the way, you do get 3.5 inches of cutting edge there as well. We're kind of moving into the blade discussion anyway. And that blade is going to be D2 steel with a full flat grind, nice thin blade stock, under 1/8 of an inch. Really nice geometry. This is a knife that's very thin behind the edge, so slices exceptionally well. And I have to say, you know, if you're the kind of person who uses your knife for cutting stuff, and I'm not sure what other kind of person there is, you will really appreciate the slicing power of this blade. It's very well done. Nice and thin, nice full flat grind. I'm really happy with this blade design in terms of an EDC cutting tool. It is D2 steel, and you know the D2 here seems to have performed pretty well, about what I would expect from D2. So you know nothing, it's not S110V or something like that, but it's very admirable in terms of its performance. I have no complaint with that. I also like the way they've done the opening hole here. It doesn't get in the way. It works very well, and so I'm pretty happy with that, as well as the plunge grind. You know, and this is one of those things that I always, you know, I don't know what. Here's a $70 knife that does the plunge grind right, and it kind of makes me go, okay, when you're making a $300 or $500 knife, it's hard to give you a pass on that when something like this can do such a great job of giving me that nice bit of sharpening choil there and really keeping that plunge grind out of the way of the secondary bevel. Really well done there. So yeah, great blade, absolutely happy with it. And you know, if you're the kind of person, as I said, that needs a knife for cutting stuff, you're going to be quite happy. Moving on to lockup and deployment. We've kind of already touched on that, but let's start with the deployment hole. You can see that this is actually stepped here. So there's little sort of 90-degree steps, and it works really well to kind of catch your finger. Now for me, that means you're kind of, with your thumb, it's pretty hard to push up, okay? And if you want to flick a knife open, you sort of have to push it up, and you can't do that very well with this. So you're forced to push out, which means you're just going to be rolling this open if you use your finger. I can spidey flick it pretty well. This is not a drop shot knife at all. The action is fine, but it's not, you know, something spectacular. It's not like, let's say, so on the PM2 here, you know, you can see that just beautiful drop shot action. You're not going to get that out of this knife, but it's quite nice. And by the way, it is phosphor bronze and Teflon together, which means, you know, as a user, it's going to be pretty reliable. There's no bearings to get gunked up or anything like that, which I definitely rather appreciate. In terms of unlocking this knife and opening and closing it, everything is comfortable, everything is accessible. I don't feel myself, you know, trying to, you know, all the things that I sometimes complain about. Either I'm not struggling to get a hold of the lock bar is not uncomfortable, I can easily open this knife when I want to, well, except for when I'm filming, of course, but I can easily open this knife when I want to, close it when I want to. It's good solid lockup. So all the things that I look for in an action are there, with the exception of, you know, this is not sort of a bearing drop shut type of knife, and it's not on bearing, so that's a little bit to be expected. So no big complaints about that. I will say, it is adjustable here. You've got an Allen key over here, and you're going to have to find either a spanner or a wide, just standard screwdriver to capture the other side, because this pivot is non-captured. It will spin on you if you try to take this thing apart. So just make sure you got a screwdriver with you that's sufficiently sized to do the job. All right, now let's finally talk about the handle. And I will say, in terms of just overall design and construction, I really, really like this handle. I love just the two simple screws there. The ability to look through those screws, that doesn't really do much for me. I guess it's kind of a neat design thing, but it's more of a novelty than anything. It doesn't add any functional value to the knife. I suppose maybe if you wanted to put a lanyard through there, but there's a lanyard spot anyway. So, it's fine. Bit of a novelty, kind of cool. Does it add something practical to the design? No. Is it interesting? Kind of. All right, moving on to the shred carbon fiber. I said I would get to that, and here's what I would say about this. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I have to contribute to the whole trend around glow in the dark stuff. Okay, one, I get it. There's kind of a novelty aspect to it there. There's not much practicality, but the other thing is it's not terribly functional, because if this is your EDC knife, guess where it is all the time? It's in your pocket. It's not exposed to any light. So if you want to get this to glow in the dark, you have to purposely, make plans for that. You have to put it out, either take your flashlight out and shine it, or put it out in the sun and then move it to a dark area. It's not something that's going to be involved in the everyday use of the knife. And because of that, I wanted to essentially review this knife as if it didn't glow in the dark at all. Because the fact is, if you own and use this knife as your EDC, it's very, very rarely going to glow for you, because the way we use a knife just doesn't lend itself to that. All right. Now, this will glow, and I've been able to get it to glow. My kids, Joel's 9, Asher's 5, they think it's the coolest thing ever. And they always, they're like, Dad, can we take this out and get it, put it in the dark or something? And every once in a while we do, but it's not something that I feel like contributes any significant feature to the knife. All right. Now, having put that aside, if you just look at this material, it is fantastic. It's a beautiful, beautiful handle material. They didn't really need to make it glow at all. It looks fantastic just the way it is. And so because of that, well, the glowing stuff doesn't mean anything to me at all. The beautiful handle that they've done here is really, really cool. And so I like this knife just as it sits in front of you right now. I think it's one of the nicer looking RealSteel designs. It's absolutely beautiful. And, this is, and I would say this is a knife that even non-knife people are going to look at and go, wow, that is really, really impressive. And it is. All right. In terms of ergonomics, I find it quite good. There's no aggressive end to this choil up here. So even if, your fingers don't fit perfectly, it's going to be really widely usable by many people. Now, the way this sits in my hand, it doesn't come past, so I don't have tons of room, although I can easily choke up and then I have a lot more space. So even if my hands were bigger, this knife would still work well for me. They've got a bit of jimping on the back spine here, which is very nice. It is pretty much where my thumb lands. But if you want to move up, if you're doing something where you want to push a little bit, the nice thing is this spine just continues flat, so you've still got that sort of area, that real estate for your thumb to hang out when you're doing cutting tasks. So handle construction is great. Handle design is a huge win, I think, even aside from whether or not it glows in the dark. This is just a beautiful knife all on its own without having that feature at all. And if you owned this, and I don't know, you didn't realize that it that it could glow in the dark. That was hard to spit out. It wouldn't matter. You would still have a great knife that you could really enjoy and use, that's very comfortable in hand, cuts well, and is very useful. So let's go ahead and get to a couple of comparisons. One that kind of just puts me in a similar mind is this carbon fiber G10 Bestech. This is the Bestech Ascot. This is pretty well, I think, the best Best knife that Best Tech makes. Try to say that 10 times fast. Really, really cool design, really just simple, effective cutting tool, and I think a lot of that. These are similarly priced, and of course, Justin over at White Mountain Knives will have both for you. This one is on bearings. It may cost a little bit more, but essentially we've got another G10 liner lock here coming from an overseas source. We have the Bird Raven 2, which I like a whole lot. Probably a little heftier in construction than the RealSteel, but not markedly so. When we're talking about sort of budgetish knives, D2 liner locks, it doesn't hurt to bring out a Rat Model 1. All right, and you've already seen the Para 2 on the table here, so I'll bring that in one more time, just mostly for size comparison. So there you go, Para 2. You can see that those are very, very close in size. They're only an 1/8 of an inch difference, although the RealSteel quite notably gives you more cutting edge, and that's something people have often pointed out as a weakness on the Para 2. So what are my overall thoughts on this knife? I'm a fan. Okay, I think the design is extremely attractive. All right, I think the collaboration that RealSteel has been doing here, and they've got a few designs done by the same company, it was a great move for them because a lot of the knives that they've done in collaboration here are fantastic. This one in particular is extremely utilitarian. It feels great in hand. It cuts really well. It's well put together, and it looks extremely attractive. And you're getting that beautiful shred carbon fiber on a knife that costs like $70, and you just don't see that very often. So I've got to give a lot of credit to RealSteel for doing that. And I guess $77, $70 if you use my discount code. Okay, so yeah, very, very impressive knife. I really enjoy carrying this thing. I really enjoy using it. I think RealSteel has done a great job with this. And I think Justin has done a great job offering this particular exclusive because it's a beautiful version of this knife. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments and thoughts down below. If you've got one, what do you think of it? If you've got some of the other RealSteel collabs, what do you think of those? Again, we'll talk to you soon.